My guest today needs no introduction. She's a versatile personality. Her kahani starts with almost single, but today she is no more Anjana Anjani. Please welcome author, columnist and a scriptwriter, Advaita Kala. Hi Advaita, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
My first question is, how a writer born inside a hotelier? Was it like what I am or who I am?
I think this is a good question. I think it's a question of who I am, you know. A lot of times people, when my first book came out, which has been a while now, people used to ask me about that, you know, I said, it's really, who I am. It's not necessarily something that I thought of as a profession because I always wrote. I wrote as a child. I wrote when I was in boarding school and lonely. I wrote to make sense of the world. I wrote when I traveled. I just never thought that, you can make it a profession, or never thought of it as a career till my first book was published and, the success it achieved. Then doors started opening and I realized that there's a possibility to do what I love. So it's always been who I am as opposed to what I do.
So was it the right time in your life when you shifted the gear from hotelier to this writing field? I mean, if your first book would have not got this much success, so would you have quit your job?
Well, I have an interesting career. So even after my book, I quit hotels, then I went back to hotels and I moved to Burma. Okay. And worked there for a while till my movie Kahani released. And then my agent called me up from Mumbai and said, what are you doing in Rangoon, Yangon, but basically that, Rangoon, Mera Piya Gaya Rangoon kind of, then remember that song. But it was very funny because he said, like, what are you doing in Yangon? Your movie's like, winning awards and getting nominated and all of that stuff. So, I think hotels are a passion. I still write a hospitality food column. And, I feel like you can do many things. You don't just have to do just one thing. But yes, there was one decision that I had to take consciously, which was that hotels are very time consuming, as a profession. And if I was looking to do more writing, then I would have to withdraw from operations and, an everyday job and focus on the writing. But I still stay in touch with the hospitality world. I do travel a lot. I do go to a lot of hotels and I write about them. So, I don't believe in giving up on any aspect of myself.
So are you writing any book these days?
Yes.
Yes? Would you reveal it?
Short answer. Yes, it's a book of fiction. It's been something that I've been working on for a while. And I'm getting very close now to finishing it, which is about time because I know my editor is waiting and waiting and waiting, and even readers, when I hear from them, are asking when. So I feel that pressure a little bit now. I think it's time to come out with the new book. Okay. And fiction is always fun, Fun.
See, writing is a very lonely job. You need solitude, and at the same time, this social media is very noisy. So how you balance it?
I don't. I'm not very good at it at all. I have to either zone out or zone in. Okay. Slowly, as I've spent more time on Twitter, which is primarily the social media tool that I use. I'm not much on Facebook. I'm not on Insta. I mean, I have handles, but I'm not really active on any of these platforms. Twitter, I'm a little bit more active on because it's more of a forum that I enjoy because it's information heavy, and I love information, news and things like that and debates. So I like to follow those on Twitter. But increasingly, I have cut back on my time on Twitter. And that has to do with a couple of reasons, but predominantly with the fact that, I feel like it's a time suck, and with all the shadow banning and, I've had this crazy experience where I had 600 retweets in 2 hours. And then when I checked half an hour later, the retweet count was down to maybe 150 or something. So very odd things happening on that platform.
We'll come into it.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, Twitter has always been a platform to share my thoughts, my ideas, as well as my articles that I write. Not necessarily promote anything, but certainly share my articles. And in that sense, it's got limited utility.
Okay. So, which part is more difficult, writing a script and writing a book?
They're different.
They're different.
They're both difficult, but they're different. The book is a far more solitary exercise because obviously you're working on your own, and it's just your editor comes in at one point when you're ready to share the manuscript with them, and it's usually someone you trust. For example, my editor is somebody that I've worked with before and I have a good friendship with for 10 years now, so she's like almost a member of my family. I know her that well and she knows me that well, so it's a very cozy kind of work environment. And with the film, what happens is it's a project-to-project basis. The teams change. You're not the primary storyteller. There is an actor who will essay the role. There is an actress who will essay the role. There is a producer who's putting in the money. There is the director who's visualizing it. So there are all these stakeholders in a film project, and their version or their take on a story comes into play in this case, which is not the case with writing a book.
Writing a book. I mean, this way there are a lot of people around you. Right? It's not a lonely job, writing a script.
It can be annoying. I choose loneliness.
Right. So, see, once you become a public figure, people expect that you should react on each and everything and any issue, right? So these days, even no tweet is a tweet.
Right.
So how you handle the repercussion, like not from the trawlers, but from the mainframe media, if you write a tweet or you support something? Have you gone through such experience?
Yes. I've said certain things, about certain things, and then there have been these articles written. I remember where Jack Dorsey was visiting. He held up the Brahminical Patriarchy poster, and I found that very offensive, and I thought that it targeted a specific community of people, and I commented on that, and subsequently that generated debate, and there were articles written on my comment and all of that. But I said what I had to say, and I stand by it. I think it was in very, very poor taste. It was at the very least ill-advised. And I don't think he should have been doing something like that. So there are things that I've said, that have triggered conversation or debate. But I certainly don't believe in being hurtful about people or getting personal with people. There are certain rules that I follow as far as my own personal conduct on Twitter goes. No abuse, no personal attacks. I make my points and I get out of there. I don't really engage in, this kind of verbal kind of argumentation. Arguments that go on and on and on. I don't do much of that. So, there's a way that I've, kind of kept my Twitter
how you control
happy.
yourself, when you see someone is crossing a limit, so you feel like to, give answer, but you can't answer each and every, tweet.
Right.
So how you handle it? You just let it go, or you feel like to...
No, a lot of people ask me that. They say, how are you so calm, even on TV debates and as well as on Twitter, because there are definitely people out there to provoke you and to get you to react. And I think that's where the hospitality trading helps, right? Because if you've been across a desk and someone's been nasty to you or abused you to your face, and that's face to face, then some anonymous person or someone who you've never meet or are likely to never meet, how does it matter what they think of you or what they think of your opinion or anything, how does it really matter? I think I've always been very clear in terms of who my circle is, my circle of resonance, and the people who kind of ground me and the people who give me feedback, well-intentioned feedback, even criticism. And I know it's coming from a good place, and I know it's something I need to heed. So I have always had that circle. And as for people saying negative things, to me, I've already had that experience. I've written up films. The moment a film comes out, it's something you've lived with for 2.5, 3 years. And suddenly there are 300 reviews within 2 hours. And people are saying all kinds of things, So over time, I think you learn to, take the brick back.
As election is coming, so this place is now more clattering. You have to face it.
Yes.
Anyhow. So since 2014, when BJP came into power, so we saw a ideological divide in Bollywood only. This rift became very clear when this recently accidental Prime Minister movie came. So how you see it? This ideological divide in the Bollywood, is it really a real thing?
I of course know of people who have suffered in terms of getting work. Because they have shown support to, Prime Minister Modi, for example, and they've seen offers not coming their way, and suddenly people who they were friends with not really reacting to them or calling them to their parties. Bollywood has a lot of parties. So, all of that has happened. I think there is a certain discrimination that exists. We can't, ignore that or say that it doesn't exist. Having said that, I think the beauty of being a creative person is if a story is good, it'll just work because the public makes you, the public breaks you. And no one else can. Be it if you're an actor, it's the same. If you're a director, if you're a writer, I could write the crappiest story and be a superstar and it wouldn't matter.
Right.
And I could write a small story that touches the lives of people and no one knows my name, but if they love it, they love it. So, that's the way you have to look at it.
So, my next question is, have you faced any challenge just because of your political tilt? In your profession?
In my profession, of course, yes, of course.
Would you like to?
I don't do the victim thing really well because I just feel that if no one is giving you an opportunity, if you have to create them for yourself, if there are no doors opening, then you've got to open a window for yourself. So I don't believe in sitting back and saying that, oh, this one did that to me or that one did this to me. And of course, there's been things that I've had to face, most certainly.
Right. The people are there who are vocal about this, like Kangana Ranaut and all, who have faced just because of their ideological difference in the Bollywood. So my question was that only, have you faced something like that very, in a recent time that...
also you have to look at the present time. I'm not writing for film right now.
Okay.
So I can't say that this is have there been projects that have fallen through suddenly?
Okay.
Of course, that's happened.
Right.
I can confirm that. But again, I say, am I going to sit on conjecture? Because no one actually comes when there's discrimination, right? Nobody actually comes out and tells you that this is why we're doing it.
Right.
Okay. Nobody will say we're doing this because of XYZ or, like you say, political tilt or whatever. It'll just not happen for some reason. So, that's the way you play it. That's the game. You have to play the game and you have to keep moving on. And like I said, I've always felt this very strongly. If my story doesn't become a film, it'll be a book.
Okay.
If it's a book, it may become a web series. If it's not a web series, it may be an audio book. It may turn into a podcast. We live in a time of diversity, opportunity. So I think, sure, these things happen, but it's not something that can pin you down or should pin you down.
How do you see the biasness of Twitter? Like recently it was a protest also. So what do you say about that?
I think, yes, I think there's a huge bias. I know that followers of mine don't, get to see my tweets. I suddenly unfollow people that I've been following. And, that gets awkward because people take it so personally if you unfollow them. And you don't know why that's happened. The retweets have told you what's happened with that. So, and my follower count, for example, just doesn't go up, it crawls. And I know, that was not the case earlier. And if anything, I've become, sort of more, I've engaged more on Twitter than other platforms. So it's there, it's something that's there. And again, like I said, the discrimination is real. but what do? You have to use the medium for what it does. And I think Twitter is just a platform. If you look at the younger generation, than tweens, so to speak, they're not even on Twitter that much. They're all on Insta. That's what they are adopting.
Right.
So I think the whole demographic is also changing, and Twitter has to really rethink their bias, or they're going to become a platform which is not really relevant in the future.
What's your take on Cobra Sting, which recently they conducted?
Okay.
How do you see it?
Oh, the one about the
Bollywood. Yeah.
I didn't really get into that sting. From what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there were people who were willing to tweet.
They were ready to, do stuff and getting paid for it. So.
But that happens all the time,
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense that if they're endorsing a political party, then they get paid for it. If they're endorsing detergent, they get paid for it. It is transactional, I think that is something that exists,
Yeah, it exists.
There's no way around it, I don't even think that Bollywood would be really apologetic about
Right.
it, I think the favor exchange game, whether it's in
their job,
monetary or terms, or if it's in getting a favor here or some clearance there, I think that's carried on forever. I mean, it's an open book, right? Because it's a completely transactional relationship. You know, politics, Bollywood, cricket are the three most high-profile professions in this country, and they all interact with each other and are transactional.
You know, recently after Pulwama attack, we saw Pakistan media, their celebrities and their politicians, they all were united. But from our side, unfortunately, as a victim, we saw a kind of a soft support for Imran Khan from our side. How do you see it?
I think it's appalling, you know. I mean, I'm somebody who has lost someone in 26/11 and been enraged at the time when our government did nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, I'm a hotelier. I've knew a lot of people who were trapped in those hotels during that time. I knew people who were shot and survived. I know someone who was shot and died, who was a young man. So for me, it was a very real experience. It's something I'll never forget. I remember being awake for 3 days and just watching TV because that was the only way to stay connected with what was going on. And my utter desperation and disappointment when the government didn't do anything after 26/11. And that's one of the reasons why I even wrote Kahani, you know. So it did, because there was an impotence that I felt, you know, which brought out this sort of vigilantism, story of vigilantism, which is of course fictional. I don't support vigilantism, but you know, it did need some sort of catharsis. And I feel that, you know, it was very important that the Prime Minister stood by that the armed forces, that he gave them a free hand and said that, you know, extract the revenge that we need to, and we're not going to sit back and take terror attacks and just give you a dossier in return. So that kind of dossier exchange, I think that's come to an end. I think he's redrawn the red line when it comes to terror in this country. I think whatever comes in the future, this will be a reference point for all leaders in terms of what is expected of them when it comes to the fight against terror. And I think the Prime Minister has done something which is historical, which is a landmark, which will be remembered for generations. And people will compare the action or inaction of other leaders with what he has done. And if you see the sentiment on the ground, I travel extensively, I travel mostly by rail, you will find that the ordinary person is very, very supportive of the Prime Minister in this hour. And the kind of dissonance that you're talking about is something that we see on social media
mainly,
or on TV debates. But it doesn't.
No, but now mainstream media also, unfortunately, this time they were biased, and you know, as our Prime Minister recently said very clearly that you know, following the trend of anti-Modi, you become anti-national now. You are, you know, the support for the Imran Khan recently in this incident that has shows us. So that was the thing I'm asking about. Not only social media, but mainstream media is also.
But you know, but then you have to check wonder about their instinct, you know, in terms of their depth of knowledge. Because even as an ordinary citizen who just reads a lot, you know, I don't have sources, I don't have access, I just read a lot. I know for a fact just how powerful or how relevant the Prime Minister of Pakistan is. You know, we know who runs the show, the ISI and the generals, right? So, I mean, if you're going to assume that the Pakistani Prime Minister has to be taken seriously in terms of what he's saying, then I question your kind of, you know, journalism, because how can you not, you know, I mean, I have enough, just as an ordinary Indian, just as someone who reads, know for a fact that the generals run the show, that the Pakistani people also have very limited control over what is happening in their country. You know, so I think it's very clear that what this government did, and I'm glad they clarified, was that they went after a terror camp. They did not attack civilians, they did not attack military, they just went out after the terror camp. So it was not an act of war. The government of India was very clear in terms of what it did. And we also have to emphasize that clarity. You know, the Pakistani deep state controls the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So he says exactly what they want him to say. So he may say something you want to hear at this point of time, because a war does not suit a debt-ridden country which has taken on Iran and Afghanistan on two sides of its borders and doesn't want a problem with India. So they will say the right thing to get out of it, because they can't afford a war.
So following that, I want to ask, what is the difference you feel in this government and the previous government? Any one initiative you would like to say that you...
I think it's also been a leadership style. Unfortunately, with the previous government, the office of the Prime Minister was really compromised. And I think with Prime Minister Modi and his decisive leadership and his take charge attitude, he has elevated the office once again, which I think was extremely important in the eyes of the general public. Because there was this whole, we can argue about the merits of that kind of discourse and debate about, the puppet Prime Minister and the remote control and all of those things. But I think the office of the Prime Minister suffered. And Prime Minister Modi has been able to bring back some of that to the office of the Prime Minister. That's the optics. On a more functional, practical level, one of the schemes that I'm very, very supportive of and very excited about, because I truly believe this, is Ayushman Bharat. I think good health intervention should be a fundamental right. And the fact that you give 5 lakhs to below poverty line people in the event of medical emergencies and medical treatment is amazing. Right. And it is the largest such scheme in the world. It is a landmark. The rest of the world is watching how we roll this out. And to have that vision and to bring that sense of security to people, because whether you fall sick or I fall sick or someone who lives on the street falls sick, the suffering is the same. Right. And the fact that, we have access and they don't, is something that should bother every Indian. And I think it is Ayushman Bharat just gets 2 thumbs up from me.
So a small tricky question. What's your prediction about election 2019?
My prediction?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel looking at the situation right now, based on what I'm seeing and the arithmetic as well as the chemistry, they're both important. I feel that the BJP has a strong chance of returning to office.
Okay.
I don't want to take a call on the numbers, but even in UP, which people are, sort of saying they're going to lose a lot of seats and this and that, I think one needs to revisit how Amit Shah worked out the arithmetic in the assembly elections, and the fact that, he carved out certain constituencies from even, the larger Dalit castes and Jatav, non-Jatav, all of those kind of things. Right. So I think, he rearranged some of that. Right. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting in terms of how that plays out in terms of UP. I mean, I'm from UP as well, so I watch that carefully. And of course, the 10% reservation for economically weaker sections. So, there has been this two-pronged approach of this.
Would it be a cakewalk, or do you really feel there is a competition from Gadbandhan?
I'll tell you one thing. After Balakot,
right,
and Prime Minister Modi's decisive action,
right,
the sentiment right now is very pro the Prime Minister.
Okay.
There is no escaping that, and that's why you have the opposition in a flap right now. They're kind of worried because they didn't see this coming. Okay. So you have these cries of conspiracy, you have praise for Imran Khan, you have all of those things happening. Right. But this is a pan-national sentiment all the way down to Tamil Nadu, because, Wing Commander Abhinandan is from Tamil Nadu,
right,
so this has wrapped the entire country. This is not something which is a North Indian thing or a border thing.
Right.
It's a pan-national thing. And I think this nationalist sentiment is very high. I even, I'm a story writer, I'm a film writer, I even go by films. Uri, for example,
right,
is the biggest blockbuster,
right,
of the year. And so far. And it came out before Balakot.
Right.
Post Balakot, it picked up business again. So, what does it tell you? Films are wide-reaching. It tells you that there is a nationalistic sentiment, right, in the public. That's what it reflects. And whenever there is a high nationalistic sentiment in the public, the BJP benefits. Definitely. Because it has owned this issue of nationalism.
Right. And they are honest about it also.
That's what they stand for. Yeah, right. So if nationalistic sentiment is high in the public, right, the beneficiaries of that will be the BJP. And as of now, that sentiment is very high.
Now a small rapid fire. Your role model? Whom you consider your role model?
Male or female, or someone I know or someone I don't know?
Anyone.
Oh wow, anyone. Who do I consider my role model? I like Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah, old man, yes.
Your favorite news channel and news anchor?
Oh, don't ask me this, please. No. I know so many of them.
You have no choice.
Okay, my favorite news channel is CNN News 18 because I am contracted with them and I'm their resident commentator. And the news anchor will be from CNN News 18. My friend Bhupen Chaubey. How about that?
Okay. Apart from India, your second favorite for the ICC World Cup cricket?
I think, considering ICC is not giving Pakistan the boot, I think India shouldn't play the World Cricket Cup. So maybe people will not like that, because I know we love cricket.
Right.
But I like the fact that our team wore the army caps. So big props to Virat Kohli.
No second favorite?
And it's India. If they play, I think maybe they should decide for themselves. But I feel that maybe we shouldn't play this year.
Okay, your favorite couple from the last year wedding spree?
Oh, Deepika and Ranveer. I'm a huge Ranveer fan. I think his energy. I think he's sensible. I think he's got his heart in the right place. He has his mind in the right place. Even post Pulwama, what he said, that he was very sensible. He says it's okay to celebrate our victories, but do not forget what happened in Pulwama. And I think that was a very important message coming from someone like him. And he said this when it was an interview for his film Gully Boy being a super hit, and he says that's all well and good.
Celebrating the success of.
So I think definitely those two.
Okay. If you have to choose one among the following: Twitter, writing, Bollywood, and traveling.
Oh, writing! I'm so lazy.
Sushma Swaraj ji, Smriti Irani, Nirmala ji, the person you would like to see as PM.
Oh gosh. I'm a Smriti Irani fan.
Why?
I think she's really dynamic. I think she's feisty. I think she says it like it is. I think she's fearless. And I actually, I appreciate all those qualities in a woman, and she's self-made. The others are also great. But I think just Smriti is just, I guess she's also younger, so she has that vibe about her, where she can flit in and out of different situations, and so yeah.
Advaita as a writer or Advaita as a future politician?
Advaita as a writer.
No interest in politics that way, to make it as a
As
career?
an observer,
But
yes.
not as a career.
No.
So one word for the following people, you think: Narendra Modi,
Dynamic, Karmyogi.
Virat Kohli,
Captain Swag.
Arvind Kejriwal,
Muffler.
Akshay Kumar,
Khiladi.
Kangna Ranaut,
Fierce.
Rahul Gandhi,
Dynast.
Imran Khan,
ISI puppet.
Well, this is it. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for talking to us. Thank you so much.